For weeks, the trial of Sean "Diddy" Combs has been dominating headlines, pulling back the curtain on one of hip-hop's biggest icons. But even as the spotlight shines on Diddy, there's another figure casting a long shadow, locked behind bars more than 2,500 miles away. That man is Suge Knight, once the fierce competitor to Combs at the height of hip-hop's golden era. Suge Knight wasn't just a rival. He was the founder of Death Row Records, the label that shaped West Coast rap and stood toe-to-toe with Combs' Bad Boy Records on the East Coast. Their feud is legendary, part of the story of how hip-hop exploded into a global powerhouse. Now, Knight's voice echoes from prison, weighing in on the trial and what it reveals about the music industry's darkest corners. Though imprisoned for a separate case, Knight's perspective matters. He's seen the rise and fall of hip-hop's biggest players, and he believes there's more to this story than just one man on trial. What he says next might just change how we see the entire culture surrounding Combs and the industry as a whole. Suge Knight doesn't just watch from afar, he speaks with authority about the toxic culture that's plagued hip-hop for decades. In his own words, the problems aren't new, and they certainly didn't start with Diddy. Knight points out that if the justice system only holds Combs accountable for alleged abuses, it won't break the cycle that's been repeating in the industry for years. "If you're going to make Puffy answer, make everyone answer," Knight said, referring to the system of power and exploitation that has long thrived behind the scenes. He calls for a reckoning, not just for one man, but for the whole culture that enabled it. Accountability, in his eyes, needs to be widespread. Otherwise, nothing really changes. This isn't just legal drama. It's a call to rethink an entire industry's foundation. Knight believes Diddy should tell the whole truth, exposing how deeply rooted these issues are, and bring everyone involved into the light. Only then, he says, can history stop repeating itself. The rivalry between Sean "Diddy" Combs and Knight is the stuff of hip-hop legend, but it's more complicated than just enemies battling it out. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, their competition wasn't just about music. It was a fierce struggle for power and influence in a booming industry. Combs' Bad Boy Records and Knight's Death Row Records were the epicenters of East Coast and West Coast rap, shaping the sound and culture for millions. But Knight sees their relationship differently than the media portrays it. "I wouldn't quite say we was rivals," he explained. "To say we rivals means we had to be really, really bad enemies." Instead, he paints a picture of mutual respect wrapped in competition. Both men cared deeply about the music and their artists. Knight highlights how Combs was known for making hit singles that dominated charts, while he himself focused on crafting albums that turned artists into superstars. Their history is more a story of two giants pushing hip-hop forward than bitter enemies trying to tear each other down. Even more surprising, Knight says Combs would listen to Death Row music, including Tupac's tracks, in private. That unexpected detail hints at a complicated respect beneath the surface. At the heart of the trial are serious accusations against Combs, allegations that go beyond music and power into a world where fear and coercion ruled. The prosecution claims Combs used force and intimidation to get what he wanted, especially when it came to women and sexual favors. This is no small claim. It's the foundation of the case that could put one of hip-hop's biggest stars behind bars for life. One of the most powerful voices in the courtroom was Capricorn Clark, Combs' former assistant. Through tears, she described how Combs held all the power over her career and life, making it nearly impossible for her to escape his influence. Clark testified that she once worked for Suge Knight before Combs, which didn't sit well with him. She even said Combs threatened her, warning he might have to kill her if anything happened. Yet, despite the fear, Clark returned to work for Combs, explaining she just wanted her life back and to stay in the music industry she loved. Knight expressed sympathy for her, recognizing the impossible situation she faced. According to Knight, Combs controlled the industry so tightly that if you crossed him, your career could be over before it even began. Behind the scenes, the pressure to stay silent was intense. Clark testified about a meeting where she was warned to leave Puffy alone, a chilling message that came with no promises of job opportunities, only a clear threat. Knight echoed this, saying the industry forces people into silence, trapping them in a system where speaking out could end their careers. Knight revealed that Clark was even allegedly paid to keep quiet, a tactic used to maintain the status quo and protect powerful figures. This isn't just about one man's actions. It's a network of enablers and protectors who keep harmful behavior hidden. Knight described it as a culture where people have no choice but try to be cool with those in power if they want to survive in the business. The harsh reality is that this system has allowed abuse and coercion to thrive unchecked for years, with few willing or able to break the silence. Suge Knight doesn't deny that Sean Combs did terrible things, but he insists that Combs didn't invent these ruthless tactics on his own. Instead, he says, Combs learned and repeated what was already part of the industry's dark underbelly. Knight believes that if Combs tells the full truth about how the system works, it could expose the widespread problems that have long been ignored. Knight sympathizes with Combs' personal struggles, seeing a man who has been shaped by his environment and made mistakes along the way. I think he repeats what he's seen. He repeats what he learned, Knight said. He knows the loneliness Combs must feel, facing trial with few allies by his side, while those once close to him stay silent. Despite everything, Knight still hopes Combs can find a way to use this moment for good, by finally shining a light on the toxic culture that has haunted hip-hop for decades. The stakes couldn't be higher for Sean Combs. If convicted, he faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. That looming threat has everyone watching closely, wondering how it will all end. Knight, from his own prison cell, suggests that Combs consider a plea deal, a way to avoid the harshest penalties and move on with his life. Knight, who himself pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter and serves a lengthy sentence, understands the weight of such decisions. He notes the toll the trial has taken on Combs' family, especially his children, who have been present during the proceedings. If there's a situation where he can do some time, but not a lot of time, go knock it out. Don't keep torturing yourself, Knight advises. Despite the media portraying Combs and Knight as bitter rivals, Knight offers a more nuanced view. He believes Combs cared deeply about the music industry and did great things for his artists. This isn't just a story of rivalry. It's a story about legacy, power, and the personal costs of a life lived in the spotlight.